I caught my fiancé cheating, so canceled the engagement. Then she filed a lawsuit claiming I stole her best years and ruined her future. I said, good luck proving that. When I showed the judge her messages to her lover, she left the courtroom crying. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my door. I've always prided myself on being a rational man. In business, in relationships, in life. Emotions have their place, but clear thinking is what separates success from failure. That philosophy was tested to its limits last year when my world imploded in a single night. Looking back now, I can see it was the best thing that could have happened. I'm Daniel, 41, owner of an aircraft parts manufacturing company that I built from scratch 15 years ago. It's not glamorous, but it's profitable and respected in the industry. I met Catherine, 38, at a conference 6 years ago. She was smart, driven, gorgeous, a logistics specialist for a competing firm who could match me point for point in any discussion. Our relationship developed quickly. Within a year, she'd relocated to be with me. 2 years later, I proposed. We set a wedding date for August 15th. Elegant, not extravagant. Catherine had been married briefly in her 20s, so she didn't want anything ostentatious. It's about us, not the show, she'd said. I agreed completely. The engagement was 18 months long. We were both busy professionals, and we wanted time to merge our lives properly. I expanded my home office into a workspace for two so she could work remotely when needed. We discussed children. She wasn't sure. I was open to the idea. Retirement goals, investment strategies. Everything was planned, reasonable, discussed like the adults we were. Then came March 17th. I had returned early from a business trip to Denver. A parts supplier had resolved our issues faster than expected, allowing me to catch an earlier flight. I hadn't told Catherine, thinking I'd surprise her. The surprise was ultimately mine. I entered our house quietly around 10 p.m. There were wine glasses on the coffee table, music playing softly upstairs. I assumed Catherine was taking a bath. She often did in the evenings when I was away. I headed upstairs to greet her. The bedroom door was partially open. I heard Catherine's voice, breathless, intimate, a tone I recognized well. Then a man's voice responded. I didn't burst in or make a scene. I simply pushed the door open slowly and stood in the doorway. Catherine and a man I recognized as her coworker James were in our bed. They froze when they saw me, the classic deer-in-headlights look that would be comedic in any other context. Daniel, Catherine gasped, pulling the sheet up. You're supposed to be in Denver. Clearly, I replied, my voice shaking with anger despite my attempt to stay calm. I looked at James. Get the hell out of my house, now. To his credit, he moved quickly, grabbing his clothes and dressing quickly, while Catherine clutched the sheet, her face cycling through shock, embarrassment, and then, most tellingly, calculation. Once James had bolted out, Catherine began the predictable routine. Tears. It wasn't what it looked like. A mistake. Too much wine. Loneliness. I stood there, fists clenched, letting her talk herself out. How long? I finally asked, my voice low and dangerous. She hesitated, and I knew immediately this wasn't a first-time thing. 8 months, she admitted quietly. 8 months. While we were planning our wedding, while we were merging our finances, while I was expanding my home to accommodate her career. Get out, I said coldly. Pack your stuff and get out tonight. Daniel, please, we can work through this. Get out of my house. I wasn't yelling. I didn't need to. You can come back for the rest of your things tomorrow when I'm at work. Leave your tea. She left in tears, taking only an overnight bag. I locked the door behind her, poured myself a whiskey, and spent the night alternating between rage and disbelief. But surprisingly, I slept better than expected. The clarity of knowing it was over brought a strange kind of peace. She returned the next day while I was at work, as agreed. When I got home, more of her things were gone, and her tea was on the kitchen counter. I changed the locks anyway. We had a brief, tense phone conversation the following day. I outlined how we would cancel wedding arrangements and how she could arrange to get the rest of her stuff. Catherine alternated between tears, promises of therapy, and attempts to downplay what had happened. 8 months isn't just a mistake. I told her bluntly, it's a damn choice you made every single day. She finally dropped the act. Fine. Yes, it was a relationship. James gets me in ways you don't. He's passionate, exciting. I don't give a shit. I cut her off. Go be with him. Just stay out of my life. I contacted our wedding venue that afternoon, explained the situation, and was relieved when they offered a partial refund, despite their usual no-refund policy. The manager was sympathetic. Apparently, cheating fiancés are common enough in their business. Most vendors gave at least partial refunds when I explained and provided evidence, screenshots of Catherine's own texts admitting the affair. By the end of the week, I'd recovered about 60% of my deposits. Most vendors were understanding. By the end of the week, I'd recovered nearly all deposits, except for the custom invitations that had already been printed. Catherine stayed with a friend while looking for her own place. Things were moving forward, painfully but finally over, until Catherine's friend Megan visited me. "Catherine is devastated," she began, sitting stiffly on my couch. "I imagine she is," I replied, not offering her anything. "She made a mistake, but throwing away 6 years over one slip-up seems extreme." 8 months of slip-ups, I corrected. Megan shifted uncomfortably. "She says it only happened a few times." "She's lying to you, just as she lied to me." Megan leaned forward. "Look, Catherine is 38. Do you know what that means for a woman? Her chances of getting married again, having children, you've taken those opportunities from her by wasting her best years." I stared at her, genuinely confused. "I didn't take anything. Catherine cheated. That has consequences." "She's consulting with an attorney," Megan said, standing. "I thought you should know. After she left, I called my own attorney, Jonathan, a college friend who specialized in family law. He listened to my account and sighed. "It sounds like she might be considering a breach of promise suit," he explained. "They're rare nowadays and mostly outdated, but in our state, they can still be filed if there are claims of specific financial damages or career sacrifices made for the relationship." "Breach of promise? I'm not the one who broke promises." "I know that, but these cases can get messy. Start gathering all evidence of the infidelity. Also, documentation of any joint plans or investments you made for the wedding and future." I wasn't particularly worried. I had evidence, logic, and truth on my side. Still, I followed his advice meticulously, organizing everything from text messages to financial records. 3 weeks later, I was served with lawsuit papers. Catherine was suing me for loss of economic opportunity, claiming that by inducing her to relocate and invest 6 years in a relationship that I terminated without just cause, I had deprived her of prime career advancement and reproductive years. She was seeking $440,000, a figure her lawyer had apparently calculated based on salary differential from her job change, future earning potential, and some creative math regarding the market value of her lost reproductive years. Jonathan was as shocked as I was. "This is unusual, to say the least. She's essentially trying to monetize the relationship as if it were a business partnership that you dissolved. Can she actually win this?" "Unlikely, given the circumstances, but courts can be unpredictable. We need to prepare thoroughly." Over the next 2 months, my life became a blur of depositions, document submissions, and legal consultations. Catherine's legal team pushed an aggressive narrative that I had lured her away from a promising career trajectory, that I had repeatedly promised her a specific lifestyle, that I had discouraged her from advancing in her career to support mine, and that I had abruptly canceled our wedding without sufficient cause, leaving her emotionally devastated and economically disadvantaged. The last claim was the most galling. "Without sufficient cause" was how they characterized finding her in bed with a colleague. The day of the initial hearing arrived. Catherine sat across the courtroom, dressed conservatively, the picture of a wronged professional woman. Her attorney presented their case first, painting me as a controlling partner who had wasted the golden years of Catherine's life, then abandoned her when she sought emotional fulfillment elsewhere. When my turn came, Jonathan first established the timeline of our relationship, the mutual nature of all our decisions, and then, most crucially, the extensive evidence of Catherine's infidelity. Text messages. Hotel receipts James had carelessly left in her car. The testimony of my neighbor who had seen James's car at our house multiple times during my business trips. The judge, a woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, reviewed the evidence carefully. Then came the piece that ended it all. Catherine's own messages to James, recovered from our shared cloud storage account. I can't wait until Daniel's company expands enough for me to quit working altogether, she had written. And, once we're married, I'll have security no matter what happens between us. And most damning, James, you're my passion, but Daniel is my retirement plan. Catherine's face drained of color as the messages were read aloud. Her attorney looked increasingly uncomfortable. The judge peered over her glasses. Miss Richards, am I understanding correctly that while engaged to the defendant, you were not only involved in a physical affair, but were also discussing your engagement in explicitly mercenary terms? Catherine stammered something about messages being taken out of context. Furthermore, the judge continued, reviewing another document, your own employment records indicate that you received a promotion and salary increase after relocating, contradicting your claim of career sacrifice. Before Catherine's attorney could mount a response, the judge continued. This court does not recognize wasted reproductive years as a compensable claim, nor does it view voluntary relationship choices as economic entitlements. She dismissed the case with prejudice, meaning Catherine couldn't refile on the same grounds, and ordered Catherine to pay my legal fees, a sum approaching $30,000. Catherine left the courtroom in tears before the judge even finished speaking. Her attorney avoided eye contact as he gathered his materials. Jonathan patted my shoulder, whispering, "Cleanest win I've seen in years." I felt no triumph, just relief and a profound sadness for what might have been. 2 weeks later, Catherine appeared at my door, looking messy and tired. The perfect hair and makeup I was used to seeing were gone. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly. "I lost my job. James was promoted to the position I was in line for." I said nothing, waiting. "My attorney is demanding payment. My friend wants me to find my own place. I can't afford the legal fees yet, and I can't even afford an apartment deposit." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I didn't think it would all fall apart like this." "What did you expect would happen, Catherine?" "I don't know. That you'd fight for me, maybe. That the judge would see how much I'd given up for this relationship. That something would work out." She wiped her eyes. "Can you help me? Just until I get back on my feet?" I studied her for a long moment. "No." The word hung in the air between us. "No?" she repeated, as if the concept was foreign. "Your choices led you here, Catherine. Not mine. You chose to betray our engagement. You chose to sue me rather than accept responsibility. You chose to view our relationship as a transaction rather than a partnership." I stood up. "I recommend contacting your parents for assistance." "They won't help," she said bitterly. "They think I've disgraced the family. They're old school." "They're right," I said simply. "Not about the disgrace, but about facing the music for your actions. That's not old school. It's life." She left with no more dignity than she had arrived with, making vague threats about telling everyone what you're really like. I changed my phone number the next day and instructed my home security system to alert me if she returned. She didn't. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved back to her hometown, taken a job at a smaller logistics company, and was living with her sister. James, apparently, had never had any intention of leaving his wife. As for me, the aircraft parts business continued to thrive. I sold the house, too many memories, and purchased a smaller place closer to my manufacturing facility. I dated casually for a while, then met Elaine, a patent attorney who approached relationships with the same clear-eyed practicality I valued. We've been together for 8 months now, taking things at a measured pace. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh with Catherine at the end. Then I remember the calculated betrayal, the lawsuit, the attempt to monetize what should have been the most personal aspects of a relationship. No, I wasn't too harsh. I was exactly as responsive as the situation demanded. If there's a lesson in all this, it's that relationships can't be treated like business mergers, with profit motives and exit strategies. They require authenticity, honesty, and fundamental respect. Catherine saw me as a means to an end. I saw her as a partner. We were never going to succeed with such different definitions of love. Edit. Since this post has gained traction, I'll address some common questions. Yes, the breach of promise lawsuit was real, though unusual in modern times. My attorney said it was one of only 3 he'd seen in his 20-year career. The messages between Catherine and James were legally obtained. Our home network backed up all devices to a shared cloud account that was in my name and that I paid for. The court determined I had legitimate access to those records. No, I don't feel guilty about not helping Catherine financially after the case. We were no longer engaged. She had sued me maliciously, and she was an employed professional with family resources, however reluctant they might have been to help. For those saying I should have seen warning signs earlier, perhaps. In retrospect, Catherine was always more concerned with outward appearances and financial security than I realized. She frequently compared our lifestyle to her more affluent friends' situations. Still, she never explicitly indicated she viewed our relationship as a business arrangement until those messages came to light. Some have asked if my current relationship has a prenup plan. Yes, Elaine and I have already discussed this. We're both comfortable with the concept of protecting our respective assets. That's what rational adults do. Update. 6 months later. Life continues to move forward positively. The company secured a major contract with a European aircraft manufacturer, which will significantly expand our operations. Elaine and I are discussing moving in together next year, proceeding cautiously but optimistically. Catherine apparently tried to restart her lawsuit in another jurisdiction, but was quickly shut down. She's now working for a small transportation company in her hometown, and, according to mutual connections, telling a very different version of our story. That's her prerogative. The most unexpected development came from Catherine's parents, who contacted me to apologize for their daughter's behavior. They're old-school folks who believe in accountability, and they were embarrassed by the lawsuit. We had dinner when they were in town, surprisingly pleasant conversation about everything except Catherine. If there's any wisdom I've gained from this experience, it's this. The right decision rarely feels good in the moment, but it always feels right in retrospect. Standing your ground isn't about anger or revenge, it's about self-respect and truth. I lost an engagement but found clarity. In the balance of life, that's a trait I can live with.